Recording, transcribing. Here they come.
We are live.
Here they are. Good morning, folks. Hello, hello. As you're all filing in, good morning, good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon if you're in Australia. Good morning, Sam. Hey, Cara, Andrea, Becky, welcome. Ellie, good morning. Good morning, folks. We're going to obviously wait a minute or so just so people can arrive. Whilst we are waiting, just say hello in the chat for us. Let us know where you're listening in from. We've got Coach Tom here all the way from Australia, as I mentioned in all the posts and emails. So whilst it is 9 a.m. here, it is, what is the time, Tom?
We've just gone 4 o'clock over here, so we're 7 hours in front.
Talking from the future.
Been keeping it warm for you, mate. Keeping Saturday warm. Sunday
it's not warm here. Yeah, I'm sure there's a few people in here avoiding a long run, Nathan. Caroline, good morning. Good morning, Greg. Good morning again.
Oh, Sydney. We've got a Sydney one. Hello, Caitlin.
Oh, they're from Sydney. There we go.
Sydney. There we go. I got one Aussie friend in here, at least.
We'll get another 30 seconds or so, guys, and then we'll get going. Good morning, Peter. Welcome back, buddy. We are recording this. Yes, that is probably the most common question that we get. We will share around the recordings as well as the slides. There's lots and lots of links in here today, so you guys can go do some homework. So yeah, we'll share that around so you've got all those as well. So feel free to make some notes, but as I said, you'll get the recordings. We'll chuck it through ChatGPT, get some summaries and actions for you as well. So don't worry, you won't miss a thing. Equally, for those that haven't been able to make it today, we are well aware there's a few. We'll share it around too. Fiona is in. She's downstairs. Good morning, Fiona. That's my partner. I'll speak about her in just a minute. Okay, guys, we're going to get going. So you can indeed get on your long runs after if you have been avoiding it like me. And get stuck into a bit of Sunday training. So welcome everybody. Jimmy from the Hybrid Athlete Club here. We are going to be talking about nutrition for performance today. So in all of the posts and emails and stuff, we kind of grabbed your attention with whether it's Hyrox or hybrid training, but principles apply largely across the board. We are going to dive into some specifics for Hyrox because we've got a whole bunch of you in our hybrid athlete community that are racing next weekend or in weekends to come now that the season is in full flow. So if you're here from a Hyrox background or wanting to hear about Hyrox, we are going to go into a bit of detail there. But first, a little bit of an intro to the Hybrid Athlete Club, if this is the first time you've come across us. So we are a global community, as we've referenced already, all over the world of just fun, having fit human beings. We've got people doing Hyrox, we've got people doing weightlifting, running, and anything in between or combinations of. Been going for the best part of 10 years as a coach myself. Hybrid came about not long after I parted ways with a CrossFit gym 3 or 4 years ago. And as I said, we've now got a nice global community of people doing very fun things with their fitness. We do offer a whole bunch of programs at the Hybrid Athlete Club. We are not going to go into detail about those today. This is not a sales pitch. This is for you to learn lots of things about nutrition. But just so you've got the context of kind of who we are and what we do, as I mentioned, we've got a whole array of programs and coaching services that are on the website. I think it's really important that you guys know who's talking to you. But before I get to that, talking of programs, we are going to announce a program. We wasn't going to do this until the week after, but now we've got you today. I'll touch on a new program that we're offering very briefly at the end. Back to the important stuff though. Who's talking today? So we've got a small team, but an awesome team here today. Nathan is the tech guy, the chief man behind the Hyrox calculator. If you haven't come across that yet, head over to the website. It will change your life. He has already put a link to a Slido in the chat. What that allows you to do is ask questions anonymously. So Appreciate we're going to chuck a load of information at you today. You might have some questions that you may or may not be comfortable sticking your name by, so just chuck them in the Slido. We can then bring them up at the end anonymously. You've got Fee on the other side. She's sat downstairs at the moment, my partner. She is our balance gal, our well-being expert, balancing the competitive coachingness that me and Tom provide with making sure that all of your PE habits fit neatly and balanced within a fulfilling life in general. I'm the guy that will harp on all day, every day about efficiency. I try very hard not to try hard by moving as efficiently as I possibly can, by training as efficiently as I can. You'll hear me talking about movement patterns and minimum effective doses of training. On the flip side, you've got Tom. He is your endurance guy. He's the guy that's going to head up the chat today. Call him the fruit man because he is possibly the world's greatest guy at ticking off low-hanging fruit. Daily, easy habits, 1%ers. He's the David Brailsford of the endurance world. He will find any and all efficiencies and little micro improvements in your lifestyle, which I'm sure he's going to allude to today. So, Tom, I'm going to hand over to you, mate, to talk through the nutrition bits, and then I will jump back on at the end for the questions. Over to you, Tom.
Sounds good, mate. I was wondering where the fruit guy came from, so I'm really glad that you answered that, and it makes so much sense. So that's cool. Team, hello, my name is Tom. I'm coming to you from sunny Perth, Australia, which is, I'm looking out the window in front of me right now. It is very similar to what it was like when I was living in England. It is not sunny at the moment. It is not a sunny Sunday afternoon. But to give you a little bit of a background about me and why I'm going to be talking to you about nutrition. So I've been coaching for over 15 years now. I went and studied at TAFE in Perth, WA. When I was about 16, I've always known that I wanted to be in health and fitness in some way, shape or form. When I was younger, I thought that was going to be via physiotherapy, but I decided to go onto the preventative side as opposed to the rehab side of fitness. So over the last 5 years, I've coached more than 550 nutrition transformations, whether that be people wanting to put on weight, people wanting to lose weight, people wanting to perform for sport or anything like that. I've also been qualified by Precision Nutrition or certified from Precision Nutrition for at least the last 8 years. And for the last year now, I've been the owner of my own gym, Flow Performance, here in Perth, Western Australia. So Flow is a small studio gym. We offer bespoke strength and conditioning services to people online and people in Perth as well. So if you are in Perth, come check us out. I've already seen Lee in the chat here, who is one of my members in Perth. So welcome, Lee. A bit more about me personally. I'm an endurance athlete, so I've completed Ironmans, half Ironmans, marathons. I've also run a 105-kilometer ultra trail race as well, of which all of those I've done my own nutrition for. So I've sort of done the research when it comes to the nutrition side of things, as well as the practical side as well. Then I think it's worth mentioning as well, in my early 20s, I had 14 Muay Thai fights. The reason that I feel as though that is applicable to nutrition is every fight camp that you go through when you're leading up to a fight, as you may know from the rise of, say, mixed martial arts and the UFC, people go through a weight cut. So they have to weigh in at a certain weight as they move into those events. So that was something that I had to manage throughout my 20s. So nutrition and performance have been in my life for a long time, whether it be through personally or professionally. So that's just a little bit about me. There's also a cool photo of me and James in the middle there, dressed up as little elves. That was a long time ago.
Look at
your hair, mate.
Not anymore.
No, that was probably that was just after I moved to the UK back in, when was that? 2016. So it was almost 10 years ago now, James.
Scary thought, mate. Scary thought.
Insane. So team, we're going to go just a quick look ahead of what we're going to run through today. We're going to go through the general side of nutrition first. So we're going to give you a general background on 3 main parts to today's webinar. We're going to go through your maintenance calories, how to calculate those, how to manage those, and also how to influence those. We're then going to go into macro and micronutrients, so how we're going to fill your calories based on your goals. And then at Flow, so my gym here in Perth, we use a good, better, best nutrition system, which I'm going to run you through today to show you that, or to show you exactly how you can take care of your own nutrition. As I've got written up the top here, this is something that is do it yourself, and it is something that I don't want you to need me as a nutrition coach. I kind of cut myself off there, and I know that is shooting myself in the foot, but as a coach, for me, if I want to empower people that I work with, I don't want to have them reliant on me to be able to manage their own health and fitness. So all of what we're going to run through today and the links that I provide are all free, they're online, and you can come back to them at any time. So throughout the general nutrition part of today's webinar, I'm going to give you a whole lot of value and a whole lot of resources. And as James mentioned earlier, this is being recorded and these slides will be sent around after this. So you can use all the links that I'm talking about throughout today's webinar. Then from there, we're going to move into a little bit more Hyrox, a little bit more training, a little bit more performance specific nutrition for performance. We're going to cover off what needs to be done in race week, but also what needs to be done in race day as well. So for those of you who have races coming up, I believe you got Birmingham next. Is that right, Deags?
Yeah, Birmingham and then London. So we'll literally just give you a blueprint for the week next week if you're racing at Birmingham, and then what to do on race day as well.
Absolutely. So we'll get the general stuff out of the way first, and then we'll move into the more specific stuff following that. So the first thing that we're going to learn today is all about maintenance calories. So maintenance calories are made up of a couple of different things. And we're going to start with your basal metabolic rate. So your basal metabolic rate is the amount of calories that your body needs to perform daily tasks, basic life-sustaining functions. So things like breathing, circulation, cell production, sleep patterns, energy balance, everything that your body needs to do when it's essentially just laying down in bed and all you're doing is blinking, you still are burning energy to keep you alive at that point in time. So a good analogy to use, your basal metabolic rate is the equivalent to figuring out how much fuel an idle stationary car consumes. So this is the same as you laying in bed, blinking, not moving, simply just breathing. How much energy are you using to stay alive at that point in time? So it's important to know that your basal metabolic rate is the majority of what your energy expenditure is. So for most people, their basal metabolic rate is going to make up at about 70% of your total calories burned, which you can see kind of demonstrated on this pie graph to the right-hand side. This 20% that we're looking at here is everything that you do moving. So me, as I am quite a handsy talker. So for me, that is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So that is all the energy that I burn when I'm not exercising. So that could just be walking throughout the day. It will be moving, it will be drinking, it will be anything that you do. The other part of that 20% is the other side of physical activity, which is the actual intentional physical activity that we all do when we go out to the gym, we hit our long runs or whatever it is that you like to do for your training endeavors. The other 10% of our total daily energy expenditure is made up in the digestion of food, which is around about 10%. When we ingest food, we don't get to we don't get to use all of those calories. Some of those calories are used to actually digest the food. So that's where the other 10% comes from. As we move into the next slide, we've got this pie graph here again, because your basal metabolic rate, this big 70% here, your physical activity and your NEAT, this 20% that we discovered, and then lastly, this 10%, your thermic effective food, makes up your maintenance calories, which is this here. So your maintenance calories are essentially what you need to be eating, or the number of calories you need to be eating per day to maintain the exact same body physique that you have right now. Why do we need to know this? It's a really, really cool skill, or a really great calculation that you can come back to at any point in life, so you can affect your weight, you can affect your performance based on your maintenance calories. So knowing how to calculate your maintenance calories is a powerful tool, and it's a life skill that you can come back to at any point. And knowing how to establish your maintenance calories and influence them if we look at this right-hand side photograph here, you can see that if we want to maintain our weight, we just have to be simply matching the same amount of calories in versus the same amount of calories out. Obviously, we can influence those by going into what we call a calorie deficit or a calorie surplus, but to be able to go into a deficit or a surplus, we need to be able to establish and know what our maintenance calories are before we even go into a deficit or a surplus. So it's a really important thing to know and a really important skill to have, being able to establish your maintenance calories. So this is the first one of the links that I'm going to give you today, and this is to a simple BMR calculator or maintenance calorie calculator that you can use online. So calculator.net, and you'll be presented with a page like this one here. So I've taken a screenshot of it for you so you know if you're going to the right place when you get there. From there, just using some basic information. So 32 years old, which is myself, male, my height and my weight. Once I enter those and hit this calculate button, just on the right-hand side, you're going to be spat out your basal metabolic rate, which again is the amount of calories you need to essentially lay down in bed all day. From there, you'll be presented with this small little daily or activity level table that we have here. So this table, based on how much exercise you're performing, the intensity of that exercise, you'll see that your caloric mark is going to be a little bit different. So what that does is that takes into account your basal metabolic rate plus your energy expenditure, and this here will be your maintenance calories. So for instance, if I'm doing daily exercise and intense exercise 3 to 4 times a week, to maintain the exact physique that I have now and my current energy levels without making any differences, I'm going to be looking at around about 2,819 calories. So this number here is going to be your maintenance calories, which you can calculate by going to calculator.net. So that is the first step into establishing a really, really positive relationship with your nutrition, is being able to establish your maintenance calories, which you can do free online via this link. Cool. So once we've got that number, why is that useful? Which is a really good question. I kind of alluded to it before. Once we know what it is, we can establish our goals. So if we want to lose weight, we simply need to influence that maintenance caloric number to go into what we call a calorie deficit, which means, as you can see visually over here, we're going to be expending more calories than what we're consuming. If we want to build muscle, then we do the opposite. We go into a surplus. So as you can see down the bottom here, we're going to be consuming more calories than we are expending. Obviously, if we want to stay in the middle and we want to sort of lean up, or we want to be able to perform, whether it be through a Hyrox event, a weightlifting, anything that you're performing, we want to be able to make sure that we're at least maintaining or eating at our maintenance calories. Down the bottom here, you can see that we've got a couple of different suggestions. So if you want to go into a deficit, simply taking 10 to 20% of calories from your maintenance caloric number is how we go into a deficit. Surplus is the complete opposite. And then to maintain or increase your performance for your Hyrox endeavors, then eating at your maintenance calories is the best bet for you. So now that we have that number, we know how to influence it, we're going to have a chat about how to fill that number. So we've got this grand number, this maintenance calories number, but then within inside that, we need to fill it with a couple of different things. Those things are called macronutrients, which you might have heard before, or you might be quite familiar with. To start off, let's actually dive into what a macronutrient is. So they're affectionately called macros, and they are the nutritive components of food. They are the components of the food that we need to be able to perform activities of daily living. They provide us with energy, and they also provide us with recovery as well. So macros, for the most part, can be broken down into 3 different categories. We have our proteins, we have our carbohydrates, and we have our fats. They are the 3 macronutrients, and that's what we're going to be diving into now. We're going to start with protein because I feel it is the most important macronutrient, because if you can nail your protein, then you're going to be recovering from your athletic endeavors. From there, we can fill the rest of our we can fill the rest of our maintenance calories out with some carbohydrates and fats. But before we get there, let's talk about protein. Proteins are made up of building blocks, which are called amino acids. So this diagram that I've got here, the far left, where the proteins are all stuck together, that is how you consume proteins through your diet. So they come in as big blocks, and then through the digestive process, they are broken down into smaller building blocks, so singular pieces, and they're what we call amino acids. So once they've gone through this digestive process, your body puts them into an amino acid pool, and then they are used later on to repair bones and muscles. So once you've done a hard workout, proteins are the physical resources that your body uses to recover from those workouts. Amino acids also play a key role in hormone and enzyme production, which are, they're essential. They're essential. They're essential for not only your energy production, but also your hormone production as well, in conjunction with fats, which we're going to get to in a second. So protein is very rarely used as an energy source. However, it can be through various pathways within the body if it needs to be. And 1 gram of protein is going to yield you 4 calories worth of energy. A little sip of water. So now we know what protein is. How much should we be consuming? For most people, your protein intake is going to be around 25 to 35% of your total caloric intake. So that maintenance calorie number that we had before, protein is going to account for 25 to 30% of those calories. A cool and personalized little formula that you can use instead of just using a general 25 to 30% number, you can use this little calculation that we have here. So protein intake equals your lean body mass in kilograms times by 1.6 to 2.4 grams of protein. So that is a fairly large scale, 1.6 to 2.4 grams, and it is going to be quite individual and quite personalized as to where you fall on that scale. So if we are just a general everyday person that is maybe exercising at low intensity 2, 3 to 4 times a week, then you're going to be sitting closer towards the 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of lean body mass. Now, I know that the type of community that we have here at Hybrid is probably not that type of person. We're probably the type of people that like to push ourselves a little bit more. We like to test our physical and mental barriers, which comes with greater recovery needs. So we're going to push our protein intake closer towards the 2 to 2.4 grams of protein as opposed to that 1.6. So where you fall on that scale is going to be quite individual based on what you're doing with your training. Now, as we move on from here, how do we actually do that? Both of these slides have been taken from Trifecta Nutrition, which you can see their little Instagram handle at the bottom here. Trifecta Nutrition is one of the simplest and easiest Instagram accounts or social media accounts to follow for really, really potent and simple nutrition advice. So you're going to see me reference a few of their diagrams like this throughout today's webinar. The first one that we're going to cover off is protein. So you can see here that these high protein foods ranging from chicken to whey protein, fish, and even steak, we can see per 100 grams of that food consumed, how many grams of protein we are going to be getting. So I love these little cheat sheets. They're fantastic. They are simple. You can just look at them and you know which foods are going to be high in protein and you know which ones are going to be higher than others. After coaching more than 550 people over the last 5 years, I can tell you that protein is probably the macronutrient that most people struggle with, which is why little tidbits and little diagrams like this are a huge hand. The other one that I've got here is a full day of high protein meals. So this is just a fantastic little diagram because you can see that just by adding protein foods with every single meal, you can hit your high protein levels pretty much every day, pretty consistently, once you learn how and what foods have protein in them. So again, these slides will be circulated after this, so you will be able to have these little individual diagrams. But I would highly suggest you heading across to Trifecta on Instagram or anywhere on social media. They're a great follow, and they have some really, really cool things like this very often. So from here, team, we're going to move into fats. So as we spoke about with protein, protein is more of a recovery macronutrient. Fats are one of the fuel macronutrients. So we have two fuel macronutrients. We have fats, and we're going to talk about carbohydrates in a second. So fats are an essential to the body. Most of the fats that we consume are what we call essential fatty acids, which means that the body cannot make them. So we have to be consuming those fats to ensure that our body is able to produce energy on a cellular level as efficiently as possible. So the absorption of vitamins such as A, D, E, and K, they are fat-soluble vitamins, meaning they need fat content to be able to do what they want to do within the body. What do they do within the body? They have a huge role to play in regulating your body temperature and also helping your immune system, which very much go hand in hand. If one of those is out, usually the other is affected. So making sure that we're eating the right amount of fats and the right type of fats is going to help you stay fit and free of disease, meaning that you can train consistently year round. If we do go into a deficit and we want to start losing weight, fats create a really, really good feeling of satiety, meaning that you can consume a low amount of fats and feel full for a long time. So as we spoke about with protein, we had 4 calories per gram of protein consumed. You can see that fat are a much higher rate. We have 9 calories per gram of fat consumed. Much like we alluded to with protein as well, they are crucial for hormone production. And before we move on from fats, or we go into the next part of the fat part of this webinar, we have 2 different types of fats. We have saturated and unsaturated fats. To go into these too much is probably a little bit out of the scope of what we're going to cover today, but just know for the most part, your saturated fats are things like fast food, sweets, candy, baked goods. That's going to be the type of fat that we would traditionally like to steer away from. And your unsaturated fats are going to be the quality fats that we want to be consuming. Things like avocados, nuts, seeds, solid cooking oils like avocado and olive oil. They're the types of fats that we're going to want to be consuming in reasonable amounts. So again, I've put a little trifecta cheat sheet for you on the right-hand side here, which is exactly the same as the protein one we had before. So you've got healthy fats per 100 grams of these foods eaten, and every single one of these fats on this cheat sheet is, as we just spoke about, an unsaturated fat. So how much fat should we be consuming? Fat is very similar to protein in this sense. It should account for around about 25 to 35% of your caloric intake. And again, a short or a very quick calculation that you can do, your lean body mass in kilograms, times that by 0.8 to 1.2 grams, and that is going to be how many grams of fat you should be consuming per day. I've left a little note down the bottom here that they can be variable with carbohydrates, and it can be very individualized in the sense of everybody likes to either go high carb, low carb, or high fat, low fat. For the benefits of this talk and for the ease of this talk, that is going to be very individualized in the sense of you might prefer to eat more carbohydrates and another person might prefer to eat more fats. Neither is wrong. Everybody is going to have their own individual way of eating their macronutrients and eating towards their goals. So whether you go with a high fat or a low fat diet, that is personal preference. The only thing that I will mention here with that is if we start to dip below this number here, this 0.8 grams of fat per kilo of lean body mass, we will start to see some negative effects in the sense of hormone production. So that's just something to keep in mind. From there, we're going to move into the other fuel macronutrient, which, as I alluded to before, is carbohydrates. So carbohydrates provide energy to help the body function, and they are the most easily, what's the word I'm looking for? They are the most easy resource of energy for the body to use. We have 3 different types of carbs. Today, we're only going to touch on simple carbs, which are affectionately known as sugars, and complex carbs, which again are known as starches. Fiber is a form of carbohydrate, but it doesn't really tie into today's chat, so we're just going to brush over that. As we spoke about this before, the energy that we get from carbohydrates is 4 calories per gram. So it is very similar, or is exactly the same as the amount of energy we get from our protein. Nowhere near as high as fats, however, very similar to protein. But what we see when we get carbohydrates inside of the body is they are a lot easier for the body to use as energy. Now, again, just referring to this trifecta diagram here, because this is a fantastic little diagram to show you the difference between simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. Again, it breaks it down into 100 grams of each one of these foods. And you can see that there are vast differences between your complex carbs and your simple carbs. For the most part, you would probably consider your complex carbs to be healthier, which is true. But in saying that, there are times and places where these simple carbs come in really effective. So simple carbs, when they are digested, they hit the stomach and they are far quicker to break down, which means that we get that energy a lot quicker. So sodas, gummy worms, cookies, chocolates, sugary cereals, you'll probably notice a lot of elite athletes or endurance athletes around about the time of their games or performances or races, they will opt for simple carbohydrates. So for instance, if you've ever competed in a long distance running event, you'll notice that the aid stations definitely don't have sweet potatoes and rice at them. The aid stations have sodas, gummy worms, and things that are going to be far easier for your body to consume and far quicker once I consume to me actually getting that energy. So that's a quick breakdown on complex and simple carbohydrates for you. From there, again, another resource for you to use on carbohydrates. And carbohydrates should account for around about 40% of your total caloric intake. So that fills out the rest of our maintenance calories along with our protein, our fats, and now we've got our carbohydrate in there as well. Again, I've left this little note down the bottom. It can be variable with fat and it can be very individualized based on your dietary preferences. Neither is right or wrong, as long as you're eating to what feels good for you. Before we move into the next part of today's webinar, I just want to give you a little mention about micronutrients. So we've talked about the macronutrients, but micronutrients play a crucial role in vitamin mineral production and also a lot of the smaller energy and energy production on a cellular level. So the impact on the body's health is crucial, and having any deficiencies in these vitamins and minerals can affect our performance, but also our health and our disease as well. So the biggest way that we can consume the right amount of micronutrients is to eat the rainbow. So ensuring that we're eating a large amount of fruits, vegetables, all different colors and all seasons is going to be an easy way to ensure that our body can not only use the macronutrients that we're putting into the body, but we can use them efficiently as well. So we now know how to establish our maintenance calories. We now know how to fill those maintenance calories with proteins, carbs, and fats. But how do we do that practically, and how do we do that day to day is going to be what I'm going to be talking about now. So the good, better, best system is something that we use at Flow, and we have done for a long time with really, really successful transformations for people at our facility. So the good, better, best system breaks down your nutrition into 3 different ways of tracking your food. Good is essentially following a shopping list that I provide to my members at Flow, along with a hand portion size guideline. Better is a personalized meal plan, which I'm going to show every single one of you how to produce a personalized meal plan in seconds for free. And best would be tracking your calories in MyFitnessPal. So there are 3 different ways that we can achieve our nutrition targets with the good, better, best system, based on not only the skills that we have with tracking our nutrition, but also our lifestyle as well. Because for a lot of people who are busy, training hard, maybe you have responsibilities, you're quite career driven, young families possibly, tracking your calories in MyFitnessPal day to day is probably not high on your priority list. So the good system is using in conjunction a shopping list, hand portion sizes, and sometimes photos as well. So the good system does not require you to track your calories at all. Essentially, it is using your hands as a reference to let you know how many carbohydrates, fats, and proteins you should be eating day to day. So hands are with you everywhere, meaning no matter where you go, whether you're eating out, you're eating at home, or you're eating at a friend's house, you can portion size and you can predict how big your meal should be just using measurements on your hand. The shopping list and snack list that I'm going to provide you all today is going to allow you to find your place within that. So essentially, using the documents that I'm going to provide to you in a minute, we can establish either a caloric deficit, maintenance calories, or surplus calories based on our maintenance calorie and our needs. So if we flick across to the next one here, I'm going to provide you all with some documents that I use at my gym at Flow. You've got on the left-hand side here a shopping list, which breaks down proteins, carbs, and fats into an easy shopping list that you can just take with you so you know how to stock your fridge at the start of the week. Using the hand portion guide, I will show you exactly how much protein, how much carbohydrate, how much fat, and also how much fruit and vegetables to be eating using different measurements on your hand. From there, I also have a snack list, which is loaded full of different snack ideas that you can use on the go, or some that require a little bit more preparation if you do enjoy the art of cooking. That snack list for the intuitive eater is going to be perfect for you to use this good system and the hand portion guidelines and the shopping list to meet your nutrition goals. Moving on to the better system. The better system is creating yourself a meal plan, which I'm going to show you how to do. So meal plans allow you to experience what a full day of eating feels like when you've predetermined your desired carbohydrate, fat, and protein levels. A good suggestion when you go into any meal plan is to keep your breakfast and lunch very similar day to day. That way you're not having to change it up and do a whole bunch of different shopping at the start of the week, and rotate through the same 2 dinners each week. That allows you a little bit of variance with your eating, but also makes shopping a lot easier at the start of the week. So how do we create that meal plan? Again, I'm all about empowering people to manage their own health and fitness with free tools. So using this Eat This Much is a free website where you can punch in your maintenance calories that you've already found out today through your BMR calculator online. You can punch exactly what your maintenance calories into eatthismuch.com. You can let eatthismuch.com know how many meals throughout the day you would like to be eating. Can range anywhere from 3 to 2, all the way up to 6. And that will spit out to you a free meal plan. Once you have that meal plan, obviously not everybody eats all foods. So we can use these little toggles here once you've created your meal plan to refresh, which means that it will spit out something that has the exact same macronutrient profile, but is going to be a completely different meal. Now, the other thing we can do is we've created an 1800 calorie meal plan here, but we can hit this little button at the top here and it will present us with a screen like this. Using this small edit button, you can dictate how many carbohydrates, fats, and proteins that you want to eat within your 1800 calories. So you can completely personalize your protein levels, your carb levels, and your fat levels inside this free website. The other cool thing that this website can do, it can produce a shopping list for you. So you can dictate how many people in your house are going to be eating this meal plan. And it also personalizes your meal plan in the sense of, what are your cooking skills like? Can you cook? Are you an okay cook? Or do you actually enjoy cooking? Something else that I find extremely useful is how much time do you have? So less than 30 minutes to prepare a meal for most people is probably going to be quite beneficial unless you have that time and you really enjoy, as I mentioned, the art of cooking. You can also change around the complexity of meals and the number of foods. So if you want to keep your food shop really small, then you can just hit this auto button and drop it down to a smaller amount of foods, which will make your food shopping at the start of the week a lot easier. And when it comes to nutrition, the easier everything is for you, the more likely you are to stick to it. So moving on to the best system. The best system is taking full control of your caloric intake, and it is self-education through the navigation of weighing, portioning, and tracking your meals through an app such as MyFitnessPal. So once you have your maintenance calories or your total calories that you want to be eating to each day, using something like MyFitnessPal is going to allow you flexibility and freedom, in the sense of maybe you don't want to eat the same thing every day, or maybe your job has you out on the road, or maybe your kids don't allow you to eat the same thing every day. So tracking your specific caloric needs and your protein, carbs, and fats within inside that is probably going to be the best way to track your nutrition. Without going too much into MyFitnessPal, again, these slides will be going around after this, but this short 7.5-minute video from the horse's mouth, in the sense of it's from MyFitnessPal, will show you exactly how to log foods and build healthier habits. One of the hardest things when people try to track food is the technology side of things. It can be quite time consuming. So taking a short effort just to watch this video, if you do decide to track your nutrition through MyFitnessPal or another similar app, watching these resources will make your experience and your adherence to any diet so much simpler. Now, before we get into the race stuff, needed to wet the whistle. So we're going to dive a little bit more into the race nutrition side of things now, which now that you have a base understanding of your maintenance calories and how many calories you should be eating based on your goals, whether it be calorie deficit, calorie surplus, or eating at your maintenance, how to fill and what macronutrients are, and then how to actually manage that day to day, it's going to give you a better understanding of why we're giving you these recommendations for race day. So race day nutrition comes down to, most of the time, 5 big considerations. The first consideration is the length of the race. For most individuals, your Hyrox event is going to be anywhere between 60 to 90 minutes, meaning we want to make sure that our body is fueled for an event that is going to last 60 to 90 minutes. We're going to talk about some strategies to carb load during the days up until your race, and also some intra-race things that you can do to make your event even better. The second consideration that we must take into account is, if we have been in a caloric deficit, we need to return to maintenance calories. For most individuals, I would suggest returning to maintenance calories at least 2 weeks before a race. 1 week if you really want to stay in a deficit, but just bear in mind that is going to affect your day or your race day performance. So getting back to maintenance calories is going to ensure that your muscles are full of glycogen, which means that you can not only run around the track and maintain those paces deep into the workout, but you can also have the energy for those high energy output things like pulling a sled. The third big consideration that we have for race day and race week is water and electrolyte intake. I put a very general recommendation down here for you, which for the hour pre-race, post-race, and during race, we want to be consuming approximately 600 milliliters of water. Electrolytes are also going to come in very handy as well. So as you might know, when we sweat out not only liquid, but we sweat out salts or electrolytes. Replacing those and putting them back into the body throughout high intensity exercise is going to be crucial to our energy levels, especially as we go beyond that 30 to 40 minute time marker in a Hyrox event. So consuming approximately 500 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams of electrolytes for the hour before, during, and after a race is going to yield massive results deeper into your event. I've also left this little link here for you as well, which you can check out. It's from Precision Hydration. Precision Hydration personalize through a small, short question and answer test how much electrolytes you should be consuming. So as I said, this 500 to 1,000 milligrams is a very general recommendation, and it is going to be better than consuming no electrolytes at all. But if you're someone who's trying to squeeze out every inch of your performance, then checking out this website is probably going to be a fantastic little link for you. The fourth big consideration that we have sounds really basic, but it's fruit and veg. Something that I hate seeing as a coach, or something that breaks my heart the most, is when individuals come towards their race week and they get sick, which it happens all the time. Why does it happen? Because your training has been building up like this, and you're coming to the point where you are your fittest. But if you're not taking care of yourself and consuming the right foods, you're also at your most vulnerable for sickness and disease. The last thing that you want to do is put in a huge training block, get to race week, forget about your nutrition, forget about the fruit and veg basics, and get sick. So as we spoke about before, micronutrients are found throughout fruits, vegetables, and other whole foods. We want to make sure that we're still consuming those throughout the race week to ensure that we're not going to get sick. The last point that we have here, and is probably the most important, is not changing anything. Pause for effect. What we mean by not changing anything is if there's foods that you know you function well on, and you know that your stomach can handle them, you don't have any digestive issues with them, they're the types of foods you want to be eating race week. Changing it up and trying to throw in something else because you heard it online or you heard it from a friend, this is not the time to do that. You want to make sure that you're eating foods you know you're 100% comfortable with, and you're going to be able to digest come race week. So as I touched on before, carb loading and making sure that you have enough energy and enough glycogen stores in your muscles to be able to perform 60 to 90 minutes of high intensity exercise. So a question that we often get at Hybrid, and I also get at Flow, is should I carb load? Most of the time, the answer is, why wouldn't you? Because it's not going to hurt to have full glycogen stores. So for the couple of days leading up to the race, the 2 days prior, we suggest around 5 to 6 grams of carbohydrates per kilo of body weight. Again, absolutely nothing new. So just because we have upped your carbohydrates doesn't mean you introduce a new carbohydrate. If you've been eating oats, you've been eating rice, you've been eating potatoes, and you know you do really well on those, then keep eating those foods. Don't add anything new in just because you've had to up your carbohydrate levels before race day. So a good carb loading strategy, or to break it down into a simple table for you, leading up to the event on day one, or the week of the event, for the first 4 days, we don't really need to see any changes. There's no point starting to carb load at this level because your body's just going to use that energy before we even get to race day. 2 days out though, is when we can start thinking about carb loading. So again, we're aiming for this 5 to 6 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight. But rather than doing the complex math for that, you can use this little cheat sheet that we've put together here. So 2 days out, we want to be adding a piece of fruit and a carb snack with every meal. So that carbohydrate snack could be a granola bar, could be oats and yogurt, or it could even be some cereal. Again, not adding anything new though. So with each meal, consuming an extra piece of fruit or a high carb snack on the 2 days before your race is going to be an effective way to hit that 5 to 6 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight without too much thought. Race day considerations. Again, what we want to think about on race day is the first thing, we're not introducing anything new. The way that Hyrox works, you may be racing before lunch, you may be racing after lunch. So we've broken it down into 2 different sections here. If you are racing before lunch and you have a time slot that is before midday, consume a normal breakfast, but just ensure that you have sufficient time to digest that normal breakfast. So we usually suggest around about 2 hours before. Once you've had breakfast, nothing heavy. So we can snack, which is highly recommended. So things like fruits, things like bananas, things like granola bars, or high carbohydrate snacks that you know you can consume with little discomfort are going to be best here. We can also sip on water and an electrolyte solution from 60 minutes before the start, which we should be aiming for around about that 600 milliliters of water mark. A carb heavy snack 60 minutes before the race is going to give you enough time to digest that high carb snack. And as we spoke about earlier in today's webinar, we want to ensure that they are simple carbohydrates. If you're racing after lunch, there's not too much of a difference. However, you may be able to sneak lunch in there. So a normal breakfast and a normal lunch, providing that it's still 2 hours prior to your race, it's going to be your best practice here. Once we finish lunch, snacks, we want to make sure that we're still consuming food and still keeping our energy levels up, but without going into a huge meal that's going to take a while to digest. From there, the bottom two are very similar. We want to be sipping on water and possibly an electrolyte solution and having a carb heavy snack around about 60 minutes before the race to ensure our blood glucose levels are high and ready to race. So these race day considerations, along with the carb loading principles that we've just supplied to you in your week up to the race, are going to ensure that you are sufficiently energized and fueled for a 60 to 90 minute event. So where to from here? You can rewatch this webinar and we can go through again on how to establish your maintenance calories, your breakdown of your macronutrients, and how to apply them day to day. So you can use the links provided throughout today's webinar and the slides that are going to be sent out. If you are racing soon, don't try and do everything within this webinar. It's obvious what you've been doing has been working up until this point, but don't go changing too much at this point. Calculate your race day and race week requirements. Plan ahead. So rather than getting to the night before your race and frantically planning your next day's food, make sure that you're prepared. Relieve that anxiety earlier in the week or a fortnight before race week. Grab a pen and paper and start writing down your plan for race week and race day. From here, if you are not racing in the next fortnight, I challenge you to attempt the good system for the next 4 weeks. Use those hand portion guidelines that you're going to be provided with in the resources from this webinar. So the shopping list, the snack list, and also your hand portion guideline. Attempt to stick with your good nutrition for the next 4 weeks. And if you can do that, I'd love for you to reach out to us at Hydrate and tell us how it's gone for you. Tell us what differences you feel. I'm also here to help. There will be an email going out after this webinar, which has details of how you can work with me for your nutrition leading up to your Hyrox race, or if you have any other nutrition goals, I offer individualized nutrition packages, or some shorter, more general things if you just need a smaller helping hand with your nutrition. Then from there, I'm going to pass it back to James, who's going to introduce you to the new Rocks Daily program, and then we're going to field any questions that you have. Deag, over to you, mate.
That was awesome, mate. Thank you very much, sir. Absolutely packed with info there, and I obviously have gone through this before, but I just really like how we're giving everybody all the tools they need to do this stuff themselves, right? We're here to help guys as much as we can. As Tom alluded to there, we'll ping around an email. If you do want to dive into really specifics or just validate your thinking around things nutritionally, Tom's here to help. And he'll be able to share that with you. But hopefully you've got everything you need to at least start the process yourself there. I'm going to do this really quickly. As I said at the start, we didn't actually plan to do this today, but it's ready. So we're just going to chuck it in for you today. So off the back of a load of feedback with our community at the minute, there is a big need in this space for a really well-structured community-based program that can supplement either the training you're doing at the minute in group-based classes at CrossFit, F45, etc., or that just gives you a reference point for adding in some additional training. If you've got some sort of weakness that you're focusing on within Hyrox, whether it's running or strength, you've constantly got a feed of workout and structure and progressive overload for those weaknesses. So introducing Hyrox Daily, as the name suggests on the tin, it is a daily program that involves 3 tracks. Tom, if you chuck onto the next slide for me, buddy. So all year round, you're going to get access to a daily program that has 3 tracks with it. You've got a daily strength and conditioning program with 2 additional tracks that focus on specific things. Obviously, amongst all of that, you're going to have access to our training app that we provide anyway with our training, so that you can track your training, speak to us as coaches, and have access to the hybrid community where we're constantly doing stuff like this as well. All of this is as affordable as we could possibly make it. The idea here, as I said, is it acts as a reference point alongside other things that you're doing, but by all means could be followed as a daily Hyrox specific strength and conditioning program as well. So we're pitching it in really affordably, hopefully at 20 quid a month, same price as Netflix for a year's worth of programming. The next slide has just got a little bit of info about each of those tracks that I mentioned. So Hyrox Daily is like your daily staple strength and conditioning program. And then we've got a pacemaker and a power track that give you some speed and strength work to help with other bits too. More info on the website. That's enough about that today. You can sign up. It starts tomorrow, but you can sign up today. I will email a link around about that too. Nathan, did we have any questions?
We do indeed. Tom, mate, thank you very much for that. That was super informative. I will field some questions from the Slido and in the chat as well.
Thank you.
A bit of a specific one for midway through racing in a Hyrox. Someone's asking, should they consume a gel that they didn't use one in their first Hyrox and they're hoping to improve come Birmingham?
Good question. As we spoke about during the webinar, look, we're looking for a 60 to 90 minute effort during our race. For the most part, consuming a gel is going to be something that I would recommend, even on top of the carb loading that we've done and the race nutrition, the race day nutrition that we've done, for a couple of reasons. One, you're working at a high intensity, so we want to make sure that your body has glycogen and has carbohydrate for energy. So consuming a gel during a race is absolutely something that I would personally be doing. To give you a bit of a personal answer here, when I do anything triathlon, Ironman, even just out for a daily training run, I'm usually consuming around about 25 to 30 grams of carbs every 30 minutes. So for a Hyrox race, that's probably going to be pretty much a gel at halfway. The only thing I will mention on that is do not consume a gel halfway through a Hyrox race if you have not trained with gels before. Because I can tell you, 1, you're going to hate the taste and it's going to stick in your mouth and it's going to get disgusting. 2, about 5 minutes after, your stomach's going to go like this. So if it is your first time consuming a gel during a race, you're going to have a bad time. But if you've done that during the gym or out on your runs, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you very much, mate. Someone's asked a question around nutrition on the morning of a race, but I think you've covered that, so that can be someone they can go back and take a look. But someone asked a more specific question around if their slots at 1 p.m, should they follow the morning program, the morning routine, or the afternoon one?
Good question. 1 p.m. is really that awkward time, isn't it? Like it's right in the middle of the day, probably just after or around about the time you would be consuming lunch. So what I would do there is I'm probably going to be more erring towards the morning thing, the morning suggestions. So having your breakfast as normal in the morning, but then something mid-morning around about that 10:30, 11 o'clock mark, consuming a high carb snack. So something that is going to give you energy, be good on your stomach, something that you've eaten in the past. Again, we're not introducing anything new, but something that's not quite a meal, but it's still something. So I would probably be erring towards more of eating breakfast as normal and then eating snacks up until your race, because lunch before that is going to be too heavy. So I would be erring more towards snacks for sure on that one.
Awesome. Thanks, mate. So someone's put a question in here regarding like a gastric bypass and stuff. I think that would probably be best fielded to Tom. We'll give you his contact details afterwards. It's a bit of a specific question that's probably needs a bit more detail. Someone has asked, sorry mate, go on.
No, I was just going to say, flick that one through to me after this, and I can address that a little bit more on an individual basis for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone's asked a question just around micros and macros for vegans and vegetarians and pescatarians. Anything on that?
Great question. As I alluded to a couple of times throughout the webinar, like dietary and nutrition needs are very individualized. So that's not only in the sense of whether you're high carb, low carb, high fat, low fat, like I alluded to, different ways of eating, whether it be pescatarian, vegan, vegetarian, paleo. There are very many ways that you can eat based on how you feel when you eat that way or other beliefs. For a vegan, a vegetarian, or even a pescatarian diet, going back to what we spoke about at the start, in the sense of hitting your protein goals, hitting your fat goals, and then also your carbohydrate goals are going to be the best way. It doesn't really matter for the most part whether you're getting those specific macronutrients from a vegan diet, a vegetarian diet, a balanced diet, a carnivore diet, whatever is preferential to you, hitting those macronutrients are going to be the best way to fuel. So if that means that you're having to go out and source different non-animal produced sources of protein, it is spending the bit of the time and effort to go and do that. So that might be things like tofus, or it may even be things like considering eating eggs, in the sense of if you can find a natural farm-fed way to get your eggs that you feel comfortable with and how they've been produced. Eggs are a fantastic source of protein and also quality fats that are almost like that halfway point, especially for people who are eating vegetarian and vegan. So that would be a consideration I'd be looking at if performance goals are very important to you. So again, it's a matter of weighing up what's more important, the ethical way of eating to you or your performance.
Awesome. Thank you for that, mate. The last question on there is again around kind of allergies and gluten and dairy stuff. So I'd just advise, similar to the stuff about the gastric sleeve, give Tom a shout. We'll send out the details afterwards for a bit more of a deep dive on that, because it's a bit more personalized. But yeah, that's it for all the Q&A questions.
Beautiful.
Awesome, guys. Look, really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much for joining us. And as we said, aim of the game today was to give you as much info as possible that you can go away and make a great start on this stuff yourselves. If you do have any questions, though, expect a couple of emails following up with our contact details and a bit more about the Hyrox Daily program as well. So again, appreciate your time, guys. Go and have a wicked time in the rain on your long runs. And we will see you in Birmingham or London if you're headed over there very soon.
Bye, team. Thanks so much for joining.